This is another episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. Man, I'm so excited. A really good friend of mine, a man that worked my club for many years, a great overall person, father, and stand-up comic, is here to chat with us and kind of catch us up since we did interview him before, but boy, so much has happened in his life. Let's get into it. Let me introduce the one and only Stan Sellers.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, we're just so excited. Stan, you are not only an old friend and a terrific stand-up comic, but we've known each other a long time. We've kind of followed each other's family lives, and things are just going really well for both of us. And I think that gives us motivation to put the best foot forward and value our lives. Thank you for sharing what's going on in yours. And boy, do I have some tough questions for you.
Okay, lay them on me. I'm ready.
All right, well, let's lay the groundwork. We've talked about some of this, but mostly comedy on our last interview. And this one, I'm going to get a little bit more about Stan Sellers, the professional entertainer. First off, your story starts in Washington, D.C., where you were an actor and you're doing plays like Design for Living, Short Eyes, and other stage presentations. How long were you doing stage acting, and how did that lead into stand-up comedy?
You know, it wasn't long in Washington, D.C. I probably started when I was about 16 and immediately moved into semi-professional theater where I was doing Design and Short Eyes, and another play by Miguel Pinero was a world premiere, actually, called The Sun Ocean. And from there, I kept performing, but I had written a variety show called Very Much Alive, which was sort of along the lines of variety shows from back in the day where you had sketches and little comedy. But I also attached a opening monologue a la The Tonight Show, Johnny Carson. And I was attending the University of Maryland. They were putting on a talent show. Actually, sorority Delta Sigma Theta was putting on a talent show. And I decided to do the monologue I had written for this unproduced play. And I won second place.
Wow.
So that was the genesis of me getting into stand-up comedy. The following year, I came back and I did another monologue for the talent show, but this was based on campus life. And the students loved it. So I jumped off really from there, doing a few clubs around town. I had a cousin in L.A. said, why don't you come out here and do all of that? And I moved out in 79, and I've been here ever since.
Well, that's incredible. Starting off as a writer, which I didn't know. I knew you did some acting in school in D.C. I didn't know you were writing. The show Very Much Alive sounds like a great concept, but doing a monologue, which, you know, stand-up comedy is kind of a monologue to an audience live, and getting that kind of response. By the way, the students really liked them. Students, do you agree? Yeah, they're still big fans of Stan Sellers. But so you came out to LA with that foundation of being on stage, being an actor, and doing a couple monologues. And like every other stand-up comic, I'm assuming that you were doing open mics and trying different clubs and, you know, starting with maybe 3 minutes of material and building it up. Was that the path that you took?
Exactly. I was in LA actually for 3 months and trying to get on the Comedy Store. I was too young to get in the Comedy Store on Sunset, but at the time they had a location in Westwood, and I worked that open mic pretty regularly with people like Lotus Weinstock, Danny Mora, Sandra Bernhardt was big at the time. Gosh, Tim Jones, all these people who played your club. You know, we were just comics showing up on open mic. So in March of that year, I moved to San Francisco and got on as a regular at the Holy City Zoo. And that's pretty much where I stayed. That was my home for all of 79, March of 79 through December of 79.
It's so funny how our paths have kind of been similar. I mean, I'm not a comic, but I mean, I don't know if you knew the story, but I opened Laughs Unlimited, all comedy showroom, my chain of comedy clubs, because my dad told me to go by the Westwood satellite location of the Comedy Store. And it was there I saw George Wallace, Sandra Bernhardt, and Dave Coulier. And that's when Dave and I became friends. And that kind of led to me getting into comedy as a club owner and producer.
Isn't that something? We're probably there on the same night sometimes.
Yeah. And then the zoo, for those that don't know in the listening audience, what's funny about the Holy City Zoo, it had maybe 24 seats, a little teeny bit of a stage, but some of the biggest names like Robin Williams and Dana Carvey and Stan Sellers came out of that little teeny San Francisco club. I did not know that you were a regular there. That's great history.
Yeah, Tony DePaul was, he's born and raised in D.C. And when Tony found that out on the first night I was there, he said, man, you can come down anytime. We bonded, and I did. I took him up on it. I really went down 3 or 4 nights out of the week and got stage time.
Well, that is incredible. In such a coincidence that you went from doing a monologue in D.C., getting to L.A., struggling maybe to get some stage time, but you got some in Westwood at the Comedy Store there, but going up to the zoo and becoming kind of a house regular. Now, I'm sure you know, Stan, but for the audience that doesn't know, San Francisco was having a bit of a comedy boom, and there was probably 5 or 6 clubs within a 10-mile radius, wouldn't you say?
I'd say probably within a 5-mile radius because it's such a small city. You had the zoo, you had the other cafe, you had the Punchline downtown, and those were pretty much the 3 biggies. And then there were, little one-nighters that were popping up outside San Francisco, over in Oakland. And you could really in 79, you could really be on stage every night of the week doing stand-up.
And that was one of the things that I attracted Robin Williams was he loved stand-up comedy, and this is long before he was a famous actor, but he would literally go from club to club to club each night and try to get some stage time. And of course, once he got successful, he could demand stage time anywhere he wanted. But the Holy City Zoo, the other cafe, and the Punchline were all clubs that led to a lot of celebrity stand-up comics, including Stan Sellers. Now, I know some of you are saying Stan Sellers, Robin Williams, probably not in the same famous league, but I will explain to the audience that your work in stand-up comedy led to a lot of television and movie acting. I mean, you appeared on ER, Seinfeld episode, West Wing, CSI. You did tons of commercials and TV spots. How did stand-up comedy transition into professional acting? Stan Sellers, celebrity entertainer?
I don't know that it did, honestly. I think it was my acting that... Seriously, I think it was my theater acting that helped me build a career in television because I had I wouldn't say extensive, but I had a pretty good resume with theater credits on it. And when I got back to LA in 1980, that's pretty much what I used going forward to get an agent and to put myself out there as an actor. They were mainly looking at comedians for series work and for development deals to build a show around their stand-up. I wasn't that guy, but I did have acting chops.
Well, yeah, but I'd have to believe, and I want to believe, Stan, because I've worked with you a lot and I know how funny you are as a stand-up comic, that there had to have been tools that you learned as a comedian in engaging with live audiences and writing your own material. Had to have been some benefit going into all these great acting gigs.
Oh, sure. Definitely. Timing is everything. And I mean that, delivering material. So I could deliver a punchline. I think I did get seen because I did have comedy experience for some of the comedy shows. Definitely. Yeah, it did help.
Well, yeah.
All of it helped. So.
Yeah, and since this is a stand-up comedy podcast, I had to get that in there. But you were a tremendous stand-up comic. You did end up headlining all 3 of my clubs, and I know you were doing headlining gigs around the country. And
Yeah.
to make a living, you were also doing these acting gigs, things like Seinfeld and CSI, doing a lot of commercials. And then you made another transition in your life. So these different chapters, Stan, is what makes your life so special and so unique, because at some point, and I'd like you to explain to the audience, you transitioned to voiceover work, and you've had a tremendous career doing television and movie voiceover. How did that come about?
Gosh, it was so unexpected. I wasn't trying to be a voiceover actor. I had a very small part on an episode of NYPD Blue many, many years ago, probably about 30 years ago. There was a riot scene that took place on an episode, and they wanted me and this other guy to stand in front of the crowd and just yell out stuff. We had no lines. They just said, we want to put you here, and you guys are featured extras. Just yell out whatever you want to yell to the cops. Well, there's this thing that they do in Hollywood. It's called ADR, automated dialogue replacement, also known as looping. And what that is, basically, we're making the extras, the background, sound like they're talking. We make it sound like a crowd. When you're filming a crowd scene or any scene, the only people who are speaking in a scene are the principal actors. The extras are not talking. They may move their mouths, but they're not talking. It's not recorded sound. So what they do is they hire a group of actors, performers, voiceover actors, to go on stage, sound stage, and ADR stage, and make that sound. And basically, we're in a room talking to make it sound like all of those people are talking. And that's what we did on that first day when I went in to help them fill out the crowd for this riot scene. So there were already about 8 to 10 actors that were part of the group that worked on NYPD Blue, and me and the other went down, and the other actor that was on camera with me, we filled out some of the other voices. So there was a nice gentleman that I worked with that day who took my name and number. He liked my work and said, "Hey, you mind if I pass your name around? I think you're pretty good." I said, "Sure." And for about a year, I kept getting these calls with people saying, "Hey, I want to hire you to work on this show." And I resisted for a while. My wife slapped me upside the head, figuratively speaking, and said, "They're giving you a day rate, Simple." So say yes to that.
It's money. Get the work, go out and do it. And it's so funny for someone that's been in front of the camera and on stage where you're part of the focus of the audience attention, becoming an ADR professional. And I think it's easier for us common folk to say looping, and you're doing the background voices for television, movies, and commercials, whatever it comes up. It's behind the camera, it's behind the scenes. Nobody ever sees you. You never get screen credits, but you can make a good living.
Exactly. And that was the difference. When I was doing on camera, I was lucky to get, in the early days, maybe 4 gigs a year. When I started looping, I started working as a voiceover actor. I could work 4 times a week. It's been a very good gig for me. The best part, I always tell my kids, and I always tell the people that I've worked with over the years, it enabled me to raise my kids being a single dad since 2004. I never missed a recital, baseball practice, baseball game. I never missed being with my kids. And that's really the value that I've gotten out of this 30-year career as a voiceover actor.
Well, it's funny that you kind of fell into it, but it did allow you to not only use your acting and stage skills, but gave you that family foundation. And by the way, Stan's got 2 amazing kids, Miles and Sabrina, both very successful in their own rights. And this work as a ADR actor or somebody that went in and did looping for television and movies was able to give you a financial foundation to raise your family. And I think that even though it was accidental, it seemed really great. And we talked about this before on the first interview. You taught me 2 things. One, it's a really small clique of actors that get a chance to do voiceover work. And the other thing that I found fascinating was that when you see people like in a restaurant scene and their mouths are moving, you said that the old school way, anyway, I'm not sure if they're still doing it, is they'd be saying, peas and carrots, peas and carrots, peas and carrots. Is that about right?
That's true. Yeah, they did do it that way. On a lot of the old movies, they did just say peas and carrots, peas and carrots. But occasionally, and I've heard this really just listening to the background, which a lot of people don't, but they occasionally did some real voices back then. But most of the time, no. It's just what they say. They're recreating a Walla background, W-A-L-L-A. And
Walla. Okay, W-A-L-L-A. And I have heard that term in the audio world, but it's called Walla, and that's kind of, instead of static, it's kind of that background noise that's humanized. Static is mechanical. For human background noise, it's Walla. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes they said that, just Walla, 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 Walla.
Oh,
Sometimes
really?
They did that. Yeah, occasionally. It's come a long way since then. There was a lady who still works now. It depends on how you feel about her, but her name is Barbara Harris. I'll give her credit where credit is due. And she is sort of the one who, let's say, modernized the looping industry. And by that, I mean, instead of just going on an ADR stage and saying gibberish, she made it so that your dialogue has to match the genre location you're in. For instance, if you're in a police station, you need to sound like a police officer. If you're in a firehouse, you need to have firehouse jargon. If you're in a law office, you need to sound like you're in a law office. So instead of just being on stage talking about anything that gets turned down low, we do research, we show up with our research, and we try as best as we can to sound professional.
Interesting. Now, Stan, explain this to me. Are you sounding like Stan Sellers, or do you put in almost like impressions or inflections? I mean, if you are doing a British show, do you try to do an accent? Does any of that matter, or are you always kind of just Stan Sellers in the background?
Nope. Like I said, same thing. We do accents. We do, there are people who specialize in accents. I can fake a few languages. I have a lot of research, have a lot of papers with different language phrases, Spanish phrases, Chinese phrases, Arabic phrases. So we can mimic a lot of different voices and sound like a lot of different people.
So one of the challenges of the job is adapting to each particular gig. And if you're doing up to 4 a week, I mean, that's real work.
You could be doing medical one day, be a lawyer the next day. You could be military the next day, and you could be doing Ben-Hur on on the 4th day. So yeah, it does change every day.
Wow,
and it's a challenge, but it's a great gig because you get to play. That's really what you're doing. You're playing. You're having fun. You're using your acting skills.
Yeah, and because you're
improv skills,
right? You're
making it up as you go along.
And because you're behind the scenes, you can do it in your shorts and t-shirt.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can't show up on stage pretty casual.
Well, that sounds like so much fun. Well, what's also interesting, and I want to enlighten the audience, because even though you have been a long-established stand-up comic, and then you went into acting and had some amazing roles on TV and in movies that turned into a amazing decades-long career in voiceover work, but you haven't given up on anything else. You still do some acting. In fact, I just saw you on the special, it's actually a short form series called The Residents, which is about a high-end detective and a murder in the White House. So you're still getting out and utilizing your acting chops.
Yes, I'm still auditioning and getting lucky every now and then. The Residents we shot probably a little over a year ago, and I play one of the 3 George McCutcheons. I am in the middle. My dad works at the White House, and my son works at the White House. So we are part of the murder mystery known as The Residents, with a cast of, it's really a cast of many, many stars. We've got Uzo Aduba from Orange is the New Black, Giancarlo Esposito, who's done everything, and Susan Watson from This Is Us. So it's a huge cast of some really great people, and it was a fun show to work on. I think I'm in maybe 3 or 4 episodes. I have lines in maybe one. I was on set for a long time, and it was just a blast. It was great to be on camera again.
Yeah, I think a lot of us that are not in show business envy those that are, because as part of your job, which you're getting paid for, so it's kind of a good gig, is hanging out with other celebrity actors. And that could be good for two things. One, of course, just building relationships, but also you can always enhance your skills as an actor, because there's no end to our search for knowledge, and interacting with stars and other celebrity actors has to kind of rub off and help you make you better at your job, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Just watching them work and the attitude, just the talent that they have. You do hope that it rubs off and that at some point you can rise to that level of celebrity. It was a blast. I didn't have any scenes with Bronson Pinchot. You may remember him from years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Malky on, he was a stellar performer doing accents and had some wonderful stories. But everybody was just a blast to work with. Even Randall Park, who from Fresh Off the Boat, very, very funny actor. And just to watch him work was a pleasure.
Yeah, he seems like he's the perennial FBI actor. He's always playing an agent. Just so excited to share your amazing life and all these unique chapters, going from stage acting in Washington, D.C. to doing some stand-up comedy in both San Francisco and L.A., ending up in L.A. as a actor performing in movies and TV shows, and then getting this amazing career in looping or voiceover work. Stan, it's really been an exciting career for you. Thank you for sharing it. What's next for Stan Sellers?
Well, the last thing I did, I shot a pilot.
Oh, that's awesome.
Shot a comedy pilot. It's under my own production company, Two Kids No Sleep. And right now we've entered it in about 5 film festivals that accept comedy pilots and web series. And after we do our festival one, it follows 4 underpaid and overworked warehouse workers who are trying to maintain their daily breaks, but they're constantly dealing with a meddling receptionist, a boss who's never there, and donuts. So,
so we can keep an eye out for it, Stan. What's the name of this pilot?
It's called The Break Room. And probably later in the year, it follows the guys over Monday through Friday. So what we're going to do is to break up each day into its own episodes. So they'll land on YouTube probably by October, November. And later on this year, we hope to shoot 10 more episodes. So each episode is probably about 4 to 5 minutes. So it's not going to take you long to get through them. But for sake of the film festival, we put them all together as a 22-minute episode, 22-minute comedy pilot. So it's pretty funny. We've gotten some great laughs. I had some help from my good friend and your good friend, Steve Bruner, gave us some punch up on some jokes, and got some great laughs, a great cast, good director, Haynes Brook, who directed a couple of shorts that I wrote about 5 or 6 years ago. So we're going to move forward on YouTube, like I said, and if something bigger comes of that, great. If not, we're okay with that because we're on the ball.
Oh, that's so amazing, Stan. I was not aware of this. Your new hat is as producer. That's incredible. Congratulations. As a lifelong producer, I know how it feels to succeed in getting something from the page onto film, or in this case, video, and getting an opportunity to share your vision of what, in this case, a funny sitcom would be. And I think it's amazing that you got this pilot out to the various festivals, but so smart to turn it into short vignettes on YouTube where it can get a much bigger audience. Ladies and gentlemen, go out and Google Break Room on YouTube and find these amazing, funny shorts and check out the brilliance of the writing. And are you acting in this too?
I am acting.
So
yep,
acting and writing and producing skills of the one and only Stan Sellers. That's amazing. right, that's enough. I don't want you to get a big head. Anyway, Stan, I did not know about that. That sounds like so much fun, and I'm going to go look for it myself. I wish you much success with your new pilot, Break Room. I know it'll do really well as short vignettes and videos on YouTube. And thanks for sharing with my audience this great life you've experienced in show business and all the unique chapters that built this amazing career. Congratulations.
Thank you, Scott. It's been a blast. Still having fun. Just want to keep it going.
Well, and I think that's something that's important for both of us. We're both getting up there a little bit in years. And I think if you want to stay busy, you want to stay working, but the most important thing is have fun with what you're doing. Because
exactly.
That's what keeps us alive and healthy and enjoying our lives. Well, ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye out for the new pilot and YouTube show called Break Room. But if you pay attention on TV shows and movies, you'll hear in the background the looping voiceover work of Stan Sellers. And if you see reruns of shows like ER, Seinfeld, or West Wing, you'll probably catch Stan Sellers on screen. And I just finished it, by the way. It's an amazing series of shows. Go look for The Residents. Very funny, very good writing, and a great show, and you'll see Stan on that. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Stan Sellers, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks, yeah. Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back next week with some great stand-up comedy, so stay tuned. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.